Good morning, class. Hi. Yeah, I know. Oh, I heard good morning, Mr. Vilson. Yo, y'all are on point. I appreciate y'all. Um, let's get this party started. Yay. Okay. So, hi. And I'm gonna say this too. The honor, the privilege to be able to do this is astounding for me. So, thank you all for coming through. Thank you all for being who you are in this space. I do want to obviously engage us in the conversation, but I was told I have a couple more minutes, so I'm just a little slower, if I may. First and foremost, there's a conversation to be had about going into spaces and saying, "Oh snap, there's EduColor," and that's been the phenomenon as of now. It's been real fascinating because anywhere we go, it feels like, oh, like you could tell that's the EduColor crew because you see the shirts, you see the smiles, you see the gifts, you see any number of different things that kind of set us apart in any given space that's in education, and it's been really fascinating to be in, even in spaces that are predominantly like policy spaces. You'll see any number of folks, or ed tech spaces even, it's like, oh wait, yeah, that's EduColor now. And obviously that wasn't always the case. I mean, even online, we're very fortunate in that we have over 1 million impressions on our Twitter. That's been really awesome. We have thousands of followers on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram even. I'm like, Instagram, like, okay, like we only post like once a month, but y'all still gonna follow us. Okay, that's dope. And the chats have been really thoughtful, really engaging. We at one time we came up against the NBA draft. I was like, oh, nobody's gonna come to this, and we were like number 2 on that. I was like, ooh, okay, we out here. So, okay, we're awake. That's good. All right, the coffee setting, and I appreciate that. Yeah, and that meditation was so dope too. So thank you very much. Thank you. I feel I'm in my present in my body right now, so that's why I'm kind of talking a little faster than I would. So thank you, I appreciate you, bro. All right, and sis, yes, you too. I see you. Okay, but before all that, I do want to engage this too because obviously none of our work is new work, so to speak. So when I think about this phrasing of educolor, I'm always thinking about, okay, so where did this kind of like originate from in terms of the landscape of the world and how we approach everything that we're doing here? And so there's this phrase out there that you've probably heard that's called "nothing about us without us." Wikipedia has it that it originated somewhere in Central Europe somewhere, but obviously that probably had some roots anywhere and all across all across the continent as well as all across the world. Places in Southern Africa, for instance, and places like Central America, Latin America, what we call it now, etc. Even in the Americas here. And by the way, worth acknowledging, we're standing on stolen land. We have to acknowledge the land and the people that are here, always and forever. And of course, amongst stolen people, and knowing that our policies are influenced by any number of those decisions that were made by conquerors, emperors, and murderers, and genocidal maniacs, etc., etc. Okay, so now that I've gone through that spiel, I have a lot of coffee in my system now, so I'm good, right? We have to be thoughtful too. It's like, okay, so how do I bring this message to teachers and to educators and to folks who are really in the school system? And a corollary I decided to add on to this is, yes, nothing about us without us, sure. And then nothing about us without us is actually for us. Okay? I'll reiterate that nothing about us without us is actually for us, because if there are things that are out there that all of a sudden appear out of nowhere, and then you say, wait, was anybody who would necessarily be directly influenced by this thing that you're trying to promote for us, is it really going to be about us? And if it isn't, then it probably isn't for us. That's not the dynamic that we seek to achieve with whatever we're seeing, whether it be a policy, whether it be a practice, whether it be any number of institutions, for instance. These are things that we have to be thoughtful about. And so something that occurred to me when I started teaching was, wow, okay, so I'm going to go into a school because I want to make change. I want to be that school teacher that gets kids learning and hopes to teach them math. I'm going to go into Washington Heights, which is a very similar neighborhood to the Lower East Side, which now is completely gentrified, but unless you go to like the straight projects, but some of y'all won't go there, but it's cool. When I grew up, I said, oh, snap, like, this is a really cool school to be in. I was like, I didn't think about all the policies and the things that were happening around me. I hadn't thought about segregation. I hadn't thought about redlining. I was never attuned to that. I just thought, this is really cool. But then somewhere down the line, as Liz Dwyer just mentioned, right, I went to an all-boys Catholic high school, and that's the first time that it hit me. It's like, no, actually, like, folks are really trying to make me feel minor out here. So this is what it's like to be a minority. Okay, so I'm going to be in the school. I'm going to make through my 4 years, and either I assimilate, acculturate, or I just get the heck out of Dodge, right? And sure enough, I ended up assimilating because I said, I'm going to make it out these 4 years. Like, there's a lot of people invested in me. There's a lot of people who wanted me to be here, et cetera, et cetera. But then within all that, I said, okay, I'm still going to get my books on. So I started reading Things Fall Apart. I started like getting some curriculum, and I said, maybe I don't have the language for everything that I feel right now, but I'm going to get with it. And so when I went to Syracuse University, I said, okay, this is a thing that I can start doing now. I could start learning from people. I could see, the Black Panthers, like folks who are still living, right? Bobby Seale, etc. Let me get into that knowledge. Let me go understand what's happening. Cesar Chavez, I did workshops on him. That was real cool. And then all of a sudden, it's like, wait, I can actually teach for a living. So when I became a teacher, I came in understanding that there was all these ancestors who had already done all this beautiful, powerful work for me, and all I needed to do was step into that and be in that mode, into that space. And when I walk into this space called school, I said, wow, I get to teach kids and close doors and do whatever I need to do to make sure they learn math. But within that, they're all learning all these implicit things about me too, right? Like why I feel the way I feel about the world, why I approach my pedagogy as I do, why I'm different than so many other teachers that they've encountered, why I didn't leave immediately. Okay, so, but then with that too, I also started going into adult spaces, whether it be the teacher's lounge, any number of other school visits, or I would go to like the pedagogy spaces, like, those professional development places where you're going to learn how to teach better, yada, yada, yada. And I said, wait a minute, okay, this is cool, but a lot of y'all don't believe in my kids. A lot of y'all think my kids can't learn. So that's why you keep telling us that we're doing terrible jobs, because you feel like, oh, the Black kid over there can't learn. The Latina girl can't learn. I'm going to create this policy thing where I'm going to hold you accountable for things that you know damn well you didn't make up for us. And I just kept saying, oh, wow, is this what racism feels like in schools? Okay, so we're gonna do this. This is racist. Okay, so you're gonna be racist, and you're not gonna allow me to tell you that you're racist. Okay, so you walk into that pedagogy space, that policy space, and they never welcomed that. I was like, that was. Dang. Like, I really want to tell you professionally that you're really doing a disservice to my kids, but then if I start telling you things, then all of a sudden I'm going to be blackballed in a space already. And I already know how I look. I already know that I have a certain frame, right? That, like, I am undeniably black, right? Like, I walk into this space, like, oh, that dude's black. Black AF for the kids, right? Y'all know that. And then I would go into other spaces, and I'm gonna just straight up say it. Like, I would go into like the union spaces where I said, "Oh, like, you actually believe in my politics. You believe in my policy. Like, you believe in public schooling. You believe in like trying to make sure that we all have our fair rights. Great." And you still don't want to address the racist spaces. So it was kind of awkward, right? I really was trying to be in your space, and then all of a sudden I walk in. It's like, oh dang, that's wild. Like, y'all call yourselves activists, and y'all here still telling my kids that they can't learn, or that you want to blame everything on poverty, instead of some of the implicit behaviors that some of y'all show, and explicit behaviors, or the ways that y'all interpret To Kill a Mockingbird, for example, or any number of texts that you think are so dang woke, right? That's y'all fault. And so all of a sudden I said, wait, that means that it can't just be me, right? And sure enough, like, I would get online and I would see folks like Liz Dwyer, and of course, let me just keep naming the names. And Liz Dwyer, another co-founder of EduColor, yes. I would name Melinda Anderson, she and Fazija Barrett, Sabrina Joy Stevens, Stephanie Serta, Rafranz Davis, and all these folks came together and we said, nah. We can't stand for this anymore. We got to have a different conversation. And that conversation ended up being EduColor. EduColor seeks to elevate the voices of public school advocates of color on educational equity and justice. That is our framework. That is the way we approach life. And so we do this to these things. And again, actions, nouns, yes? So we amplify, we support, and we resist through equity, agency, and pedagogy. You think about amplifying. We had a vehicle, we had the internet where we could blast any number of people and say, this is the message that we want to promote. We support folks who want to do this work from a real passionate space, and we do it in a way that says, okay, we have new teachers, we're going to come bring you in. We have other teachers, we're going to come bring you in. We're going to do this together. And then we resist against folks who don't necessarily want to work with us on these type of issues or don't want to learn with us. And then we say to ourselves, okay, we lose to equity, which means that everybody ought to get the same, the amount of funding that is necessary to make sure that the students are able to learn, the agency, the ability to have voice in the spaces that they are able to control. That's a really critical thing. And you don't have to make like a really awesome organization in Vermont, for example, to be able to do that, right? Like you got to be able to, and by the way, if our schools were right and just, then they wouldn't need to do that. But because they did, then we're more the better for it. So thank them. Right? And then, of course, the pedagogy, the ability to say not just instructional moves, but also the implicit and explicit ways that we feel about kids. Because believe it or not, they may or may not be able to read, but they can read y'all. And of course, we just started being very thoughtful about how we did things. And Liz does not give herself enough credit for this too. So I'm going to shout her out again because she's right here in front of me. But all my people started coming together. We just said, we're just going to be different. Our hashtag's going to be different. Like we're going to have something where people can actually click on it and, oh, wow, there's a valuable resource. There's a valuable resource. There's a valuable resource. If it's not free, we're going to try to free it up. And then our orientation is different. The thing is not about the internet itself. It's about the communication that we have amongst people with each other and the relationships that we build with one another. And whoever that avatar is, there's a person behind that person. So we're going to make that person a person, right? The communication that we have with one another. Like Sabrina's Joy Stevens is like the godmother of this because she said, we're going to talk to each other in GIFs at a time when GIFs, like you literally had to like create the GIF and then like download it and then name it .gif and then upload it onto Twitter. And then Twitter was like, that's too big. You got to slow it down. Say, no, actually, we want to communicate through this because if we can't see each other face to face, then you got to know how I feel about this thing through somebody else who may or may not be funnier than me. So we started creating principles and we came up with this draft. We had this draft of things and then we said, okay, everybody from any walk of life in our membership. And now we have like over 100 members and it's going to grow exponentially once we become 501c3. But then we got these principles together and we said, okay, let's talk about what it is to actually be in the spaces that we are and how to engage parents, key stakeholders, and most importantly, students in the work that we do as adults, because that is our orientation. And once we decenter ourselves with doing good work, our chats became a thing where we said, okay, every last Thursday, we're going to come together at town hall style and we're going to prep really good questions and be thoughtful about them and then say, okay, we have to make sure that everybody has access to them. So along disability lines, we started being thoughtful about that. And in the conferences, whenever two or more of us are gathered, you're always going to feel that energy. You're always going to feel that vibe. Like that's going to be the oasis, even with spaces that aren't necessarily open to us. And we're going to be vulnerable in those spaces too. And maybe like you say to yourself, well, I don't want to be comfortable with that person, but EduColor holds that once you bring that person, your person into that space, you are immediately invulnerable because they have access to you even visually. And then hopefully, through touch, through feel, through sense, through smell, right? Like that's a vulnerability there. And of course, last but not least, justice, because as it turns out, whenever you walk into a space and you are considered minor, you are not minor because there's nothing minor about you. You came through ancestors that assure that you were in that space. And so when, we came at a time when, we had the Black Lives Matter movement, we had Fight for 15, we had the Dreamers come in, we had any number of folks coming in and organizing. And every other organization in education was trying to catch up, but we were already there. And we were already teaching teachers how to teach in a better way that was more equitable for every single body. And not to say that anybody didn't do it before us, but it is to say that we were a generator for these ideas to come forth. So EduColor now, we're blessed, we're fortunate, and we want more because as it turns out, like we have a hashtag that anybody can click on and we can still click on. It still has over 1 million impressions, sometimes 2 million, and it's beautiful. The website also gets a lot of generation and it's good. It has a lot of resources, free for everybody. The newsletter comes out, well, it's gonna come out sooner than later. Again, we had a little hiccup because, we're parents now, we're older, it's weird. social media, we're hyperactive on it, and y'all know, like those of you who follow me on Twitter, I am super hyperactive on it. And then the stats are still amazing, right? And the apparel. What's been fascinating is like we just wanted the t-shirts to be able to support the work because we did things for free 99, and then yes, free 99. And all of a sudden, people said, "Oh, wait, I gotta wear this T-shirt not because I want to support the organization, but because it makes me feel comfortable in this predominantly white space." Like that was a thing for me because it made people feel like, oh, I'm safe. I have a touchstone, and I actually have a touchstone right on me. Like that was the thing. And so people started wearing their hoodies. They started wearing the sweaters. They take it to the protests when we had to protest any number of presidents, current, current and past. People would actually wear the gear to the protest. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like, why'd you do that for? Like, that's awesome. And it's like, no, actually, I wore it because I feel safe in this thing. So thanks for the support. God's plan. God's plan. I hope that sometimes I don't. I don't. The influence has been so awesome too because it's not just a hashtag, it's a way of life, right? Like people say the internet, oh, it's just the internet, I can turn off whatever I want. No, actually, it's a way of life, it's a way of being, it's a way of thinking about the way that we do schooling from now on. And then when two or more of us are gathered, we hope to be at least understanding of this institutional love that is necessary to gather us together, right? And we don't just do it from this internet space. So many other groups have come forth as a result of EduColor, and so they do these on the local scene. And whenever there are organizations that are doing powerful work that have never heard of us, we are able to amplify those organizations. So we hope to amplify organizations that are doing powerful work because we want to make sure that everybody knows, like, hey, we out here. So, and we're always timely and we're always relevant because we adjust quickly. Unlike so many other hashtags that decided, well, we're just going to keep it to the internet because the internet is really safe. We said we are actual practitioners and we need to make ourselves oriented around the things that are happening in our schools. Wow. Yes, thank you. We should totally be doing that. And then whenever you have us in a conference, there's a really good chance too that we're going to amplify a student too. Because there was a time when people said, well, students shouldn't belong in a professional conference. Like, how dare you? Kids don't know what they're talking about. Like, those were things that I was hearing. I said, excuse me? Like, so then who are you serving? Who are you serving? They should have voice. Parents should have voice. Key stakeholders, right? And it became so I had to be so thoughtful about how we were going to approach all of this and say, you know what? Actually, yeah, I need to shut up and let students speak more. And so that became a thing for every single body in EduColor. We said everybody's going to make sure that we have some student voice, some student panel. And so that's a thing now, and I'm so happy to see that because it wasn't a thing when we first started. And we try to be timely and relevant, and our gift game is always on point. Lastly, please understand that whenever you see faces like this, of all types, of all walks of life, it's not that we believe that we are the first. We're just doing things from the ancestors. Like we think about the folks who started before, the African American Teachers Association, that at the time was the #1 organization dedicated to teachers of color in union spaces. And their first orientation was around pedagogy, not around workers' rights. And even then, though, they said the only way we're going to do workers' rights is through pedagogy. We think about any number of like organizations now, like the Black Teacher Project. Like, yes, this is the organizations that we need to keep bigging up all the time. Because, again, that's the powerful work. But whenever you see these folks, these are the folks who are doing the work, and they are current classroom teachers. The executive director happens to be a current classroom teacher. So whatever free time I have, like, and maybe not sleep, but everything else, like... there is something being done to make sure that any number of teachers, including white teachers, yes, y'all too, actually have to be humanized in the space that we're in. Shout outs to Abo Okaikor, A.E. Price for the term rehumanization, yes. Because it started mattering to me really, really deeply. So when I think about what I started and how I started this journey in teaching, and then how EduColor also came around the same time, I was thinking about having a child who's the guy who's blocking. Like, it was wild. I was like, excuse me, this is my selfie. He's like, nah, fam, I'm taking this one. I started thinking about even Sabrina's child who's on the upper right here. And, the first time I met him, I was like, oh, this is the purpose. This is it. And he was like, yeah, you're pretty familiar. I love this guy. So that's the smile right there. So not just that, but then my own children, my own kids, my own students. And I just keep thinking about how kids. It's like, yes, like we are creating legacy every time that we step up or we say something, every time that we voice something, every time that we feel frustrated, every time that we hurt, every time that we come together in spaces like this on our own free time and we say, oh, we're actually going to do better for kids and with kids and about kids every single time. So it isn't just that EduColor says we're going to get all these kids to get in front. It's like we're also going to build the adults so that they have an orientation around students, and especially our most marginalized students who just happen to be of all types of race, classes, genders, abilities, etc. We are going to do that work, and we're going to do it from an uncomfortable space because that's the only way we're going to get through this. Nothing about us, with us, for us. Thank you for your time.